We are with Jared and Meredith, and we are going to discuss the neighborhood with Jared. Can you describe your school and kind of give us a little school tour, and then we'll talk more about the neighborhood.
Okay, well, my school, walking up to it, the first thing you would see is a very large rectangular gravel. Um, at first glance it would look like a soccer field. It's
Okay.
also got track markings around it. And then around the perimeter there's like some playgrounds for the younger kids and some teeter-totters and monkey bars and stuff. But very big, like a full-sized soccer field. And then along one side of it was the school. It was 5 floors. The first floor had, well, we had a special education room, which not a lot of schools do. We had the principal's office and the administration room, as well as the teacher's cafeteria and some kindergarten facilities. Then on the first floor we had, on the second floor we had what was called the teacher's office. It was a big room. It also served as the vice principal's office. It was where staff meetings were held, and a lot of resources were stored. As well, on the second floor was the nurse's office, and they had a special room that was used for a class the kids take to study their own culture. So from the hallway, the class looked like an old-fashioned home, Korean-style home.
Interesting.
And inside they had the heated floors and everything, and they would have special events in there. The rest of the school was just regular classrooms, which they're not too much different from what you'd see at home. One whole side of it would be chalkboard. Usually the teacher's desk would be at the front. Then you have all the students' desks, and then at the back maybe some billboards and some storage. There was a computer lab on one floor and a science lab on another floor. We also had a multi-purpose room right near the English rooms, so during our winter camps and summer camps I was able to use those rooms for games and different activities. They would use it for parent-teacher conferences and stuff as well. One thing that I found interesting about the school that was different was the way they heat and cool the schools. And it's not what we're used to. There's no central ventilation. Even the newer schools aren't really built the way we're used to. They will have windows all on one side that open, usually with no screen, but usually they open all the way. So in the summer, that's there would be one air conditioning / heating unit as well. So that's your heater or air conditioner. And the hallways, what I'm getting at is that the hallways are not climate controlled.
Sure, the
So
cold.
sometimes in the middle of winter, say, going from your office to the classroom, you got to put your jacket on. But that's just normal for Korean schools. The kids, it's not abnormal for a kid to just wear their jacket all day. It's a part of their outfit. They never take it off.
Interesting. Interesting.
It's another thing to adjust to. Not better or worse, but different.
That's good to know. That's definitely good to know. Meredith, how about yourself? How would you describe your school?
Jared basically, I think, described a typical elementary school. Mine was in the shape of an L, and there were 5 floors, and the L bordered in a large gravel-type field. So we had sports days, and the kids have gym out there. And what's interesting about my school, I guess, is the size. It was very large. Yeah, so each class, there was about 7 classes of that grade. So there was 7 grade 3 classes, 7 grade 4 classes, etc. And my school went from kindergarten to grade 6. So I taught up on the 5th floor. So half of the section was this English zone, which I've talked about, and the other half was some grade 6 classrooms. So what was interesting to me was just the size, because you'll learn if you go to Korea is that they build up, not out. So to have a 5-story school is very interesting.
And your English zone was
And my English zone was
really
exceptional.
cool.
Yeah, it was very nice.
I can't believe I forgot. I gotta add in one thing that I found interesting when I first started. The school has a greenhouse where the older students do some agricultural projects,
Great.
and a small. They called it a farm, but it was a circular cage with big rabbits and uh, some chickens and a rooster. So they had their farm. Yeah, it was interesting, and you could always hear the rooster crowing throughout the day.
Did the
And
rooster have a name, Jared?
not that I knew. I don't think. Yeah, probably a Korean name. But
Yeah, that makes sense.
we also had a brand new. It was constructed while I was there, like a $3 million brand new gym slash auditorium.
Great.
So
That's
that was
fantastic.
pretty nice.
Something that I found very interesting was the school cafeteria. In public schools, the students eat lunch at school, and it's provided by the government. So at lunchtime, all the kids line up and they get a tray, and it has 5 spaces in it, and they'll line up, and one will be filled with rice, and one will be filled with soup, and then the 3 smaller slots will be filled with meat, kimchi, and vegetables, and they'll get a piece of fruit or a yogurt or something healthy for dessert on the side. So I thought that was really interesting and really positive, was to see them all eating a healthy lunch together, and you know what they're eating. And
Not your typical American or Canadian school lunch, huh, guys?
no,
Oh,
no,
like kids,
healthy.
healthy, and
That's
kids
fantastic.
don't care how spicy it is or how weird it looks. Like,
They can't leave till they finish, so I thought that was good too.
That's another great rule. Wow, that's
Yeah.
fantastic to hear. Wow, that's very, very interesting to hear.
yeah, they're all
Um,
getting squares.
Guys, that's a great kind of portrayal of your school neighborhood. So let's kind of transition into your neighborhood, and before we talk about housing, where you guys actually lived, maybe explaining how close you were to the schools that you worked at. Meredith, how about we start with you?
So we lived in Gumpo City, and within the city we lived in a division called Sanbon, and Sanbon is on the Seoul subway line. So first of all, I thought that was huge for us because we'd be able to literally walk outside our apartment and get on the subway and be in Seoul in 40 minutes. So I think it's important when choosing an area where you live is how close you are to the subway line and transportation in general.
Mhm.
So we liked that, and the city itself had, I thought, everything we needed. It had an E-Mart. So I think a city's made it when it has an E-Mart, which is like Walmart.
Not even our city, just our block.
Yeah.
Like our little neighborhood was. We didn't have to go more than. We never had to cross a street to get anything really.
Wow.
So around us in our area, there were lots of restaurants and bars and shops and places to go. And
There's a park. There's gyms.
Yeah.
There's.
And in our building itself, there was even a movie theater and restaurant, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
We lived in an office tel, is what it's called. So within our building, there were also offices and apartments.
Great. That's
So,
really nice.
Yeah,
So
but the
basically,
city
it's
was
exciting. I
awesome.
mean, it seems like you guys live, despite not living in Seoul, which is, I think, it's a good time to say that GEPIK, supplies teachers outside of the city, right?
Right.
Of Seoul, and clearly, because even though you were outside of the city and technically in the suburbs, you essentially lived in a town, outside of a town, correct?
Yeah, it was interesting the way that it's set up. Like the metropolitan area of Seoul is different than the surrounding areas, right? So, like you said, we were in a suburb, but we were also still on the Seoul subway line.
Mhm.
So that was something that was different for me to adjust to. But was like traveling into Seoul. If you were to drive into Seoul proper, there was never a time where you went, oh, okay, now we're out of our city and now we're going into Seoul. It was just
Sure.
one big, tall
Mhm.
city
You
everywhere.
still
Just
felt like you were in the city.
expanding out and out and out and out. Yeah, so we had everything we needed where we were. So I wouldn't have changed that. I loved where we were.
Hmm.
That's great. That's so awesome to hear. Guys, can you explain, Meredith, do you want to start explaining what your apartment layout was like?
Sure. So we lived in a studio apartment in the Investel. So when you walked into the building, there was a doorman, and there's sorry.
We were in the O plus, not in Vestel.
Okay. The name of the building was not called the Investel, but it was
Sure.
Officetel, which is a
Our,
term.
our friends next door were in the Investel.
Okay. Anyways.
Okay.
Okay, so we were, what were we in?
We were in the O plus.
So we were in the O plus. When you go in, there's a doorman, and what I found interesting in the apartments is a lot of larger apartments, like these Officetels, they have doormen who work. We
That's
had two
cool.
doormen, and they each work 24-hour shifts.
Wow.
So I think I could never figure out when exactly they switched. I want to say 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., and they'd be there for 24 hours. And also when you walk into the apartment, there's everybody's mailbox. So I think you get
Not
a
locked.
perception right away of how safe and how trusting Koreans are, and that the mailboxes are open. You can take anybody's mail.
Wow.
Nobody ever took our mail. We never took anybody. So I think that the system does work. And then we lived on the 14th floor. And when you got up to the 14th floor, there was probably, I'd say, 20 apartments on each side of the hall, and there was balconies on each end. So in our apartment, we didn't have a balcony, but if you wanted to go out and get some fresh air, it wasn't very large, but you could go and sit on the balcony. And for our apartment, it was a studio. So when you walked in, there was a small closet on the left, and you could leave your shoes. In Korea, everybody takes their shoes off before they go into an apartment. And then immediately on your right, there was the bathroom, which was also the laundry room, and the shower. And it was this wet room, so the shower is just mounted on the wall, so when you shower, everything gets wet. It was weird at first, but I ended up loving it, because
Oh, it's
the
the
whole
best.
bathroom's your shower.
And you're cleaning it constantly, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to get out. You know when you finish your shower and it's warm in the shower, but then you have to get into the cold bathroom?
Sure.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
The whole bathroom is warm.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. That's a great
So,
point.
yeah, and there was the toilet and the shower and the washer and the dryer and the sink, and there was a little bit of storage in there as well. And so right when you walked in, the bathroom was on your right, and then our small kitchen was on the left, which was basically one small counter and a sink. We had 2 gas burners and no oven. We ended up buying a toaster oven, so we could do some baking and cooking in there.
Great purchase for anyone going.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then
Buy one when you get there.
from there, we had a futon and a TV with a TV table. And on the right, we had a dining room table with 4 chairs. We ended up, because we lived together, we had 2 closets. So we had the closet that's built in, and then we had a large wardrobe. And towards the back of the apartment, behind the couch, which was a futon, so we could have friends stay over, we had our double bed. And on the right, we had my desk. So I could do work there, and a bookshelf. So we actually, even though it was a studio, we had everything we needed. Everything had a place. There's lots of storage. So
It sounds very comfortable. Very
yeah,
comfortable.
at first when we walked
was.
in, I thought, I can't do this. It's way too small.
I walked in and I thought it's way bigger than I thought it was going to be.
But then you realize you're not paying for it as well. Right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it ended up being everything we needed, and you just realize how little you need, I think, especially when you live in a studio
Yeah.
apartment. So, and I'll mention at the back of our apartment, the whole wall, floor to ceiling, was a window,
Oh, yeah.
and it overlooked the subway. So at night you could hear the subway coming and going, which we ended up getting used to. And in the morning we'd get the sun, so we'd have sun all day. So
It's very warm.
it was a great apartment, lots of light.
Wow.
Some people get these little apartments with small windows they can't open, and it's a little dark and depressing,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
ours was great. It was this huge window, so that we really lucked out with our apartment.
That sounds fantastic, guys. I'd just like to mention, I wanted to talk about the school kind of supporting all teachers coming. Right, they would pay for your rent, and you would pay small bills. Can you kind of just talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Part of the contract is that the school pays the rent. So it's very interesting, because when we first came, we started getting all the bills, and I remember thinking, oh no, we shouldn't be paying anything. And it's very clear in the contract that the school pays the rent, but you take care of anything else.
Yeah.
So the bills in a month that we accumulated were internet and cable, which was very minimal. A lot of teachers, I think, don't even get cable. We got the package because the previous teacher had it, so we just continued it. And we enjoyed watching CNN and BBC and Sometimes there's action movies.
Yeah, they play CSI on the 24-hour loop if you find the right channel.
So we paid that bill, and then we paid the apartment fee bill. Now, because we lived in an office tower, it was quite higher than a lot of our friends paid who lived in smaller apartment buildings. Our bill could run anywhere from $140 to $240 a month.
Still very reasonable.
This was
Very
the shared one. This covered things like the doorman and the mail and the garbage room and the people, the staff who cleaned the building, who cleaned the halls. So I realized where the money was going. It also, in that bill, I believe, included water, and heat. So if
so heat is done with water.
Yeah.
They heat the floors using hot water. So the way they do it is it's kind of shared by floor. So our bill would vary depending on how much water each of the people used. Like if one apartment was warmer than the rest, which doesn't happen because part of the culture is everybody be the same. Like the nail that sticks out is the one that gets hammered. So keep your heat at the same temperature as everybody else's.
Sure.
But if somebody used more, then everybody would just pay a little bit more instead of that one family paying a lot more.
In the winter, we paid the most, but again, you realize where the money's going, so it wasn't a problem paying that bill. And the third bill that we paid was gas for cooking, which we did not do a lot of because in Korea you can eat out very cheaply. So our gas bill was 80 cents a month.
Yeah,
so,
86 cents.
Yeah. When you look at what
It's a
you're
little
getting
steep.
and what you're paying for, yeah, it's really worth it. And like I said, our building was great, so we didn't mind paying that fee. But if you live in a smaller building, maybe without a security guard, your monthly bill will be less, much less.
Great. Thanks for sharing all that, guys. I'm going to go to the last two questions here, guys. I wanted to ask, what can teachers do in your neighborhood or in your city or in Korea in general outside of school? Just discuss some of the various activities that you guys would really enjoy doing together.
There's so much to do. One of the first things I did was join a baseball team with the Seoul Baseball League. Matt, I believe you may know something about that.
The SBL, sure.
Yeah.
That is, Jared, can you explain a little bit about that? That's a...
Sure, it's a baseball league in Seoul run by and for foreigners.
Great.
Foreigners being non-Koreans, right? So we've got mostly teachers. There's a few military guys from the base that come out and play. Tons of fun, lots of events. We play at a field in Gwacheon. We had food trucks come out. We had a local craft brewery come out and sell refreshments. You could buy hot dog. It was a great way to meet lots of like-minded people.
Great. What other things, guys?
There's so much. A friend of mine was really into rock climbing, and Korea's mountains are excellent for rock climbing. Very much exposed rock, and lots of clubs open to membership by foreigners.
Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed going out with my girlfriends in the evenings and on weekends. There's coffee shops everywhere, especially where we lived, on every corner, and you'll find they stay open until well into the night, into the early morning even.
3
People are drinking
o'clock in the
coffee.
morning, 4.
So I really like going out for coffee. There's I'm a girly girl, so there's tons of makeup shops. I really like going shopping with my friends, looking at all the products. Everything's very cheap, so that's fun. There's lots of markets and lots of areas to go shopping. So for girls, like I love shopping in Korea. There's always a new place or a new store to explore, and there's lots of places to go and get manicures and pedicures, and just for girly girls, yeah, there's lots to do. It's really fun.
Sure. That sounds awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun, guys. Guys, to wrap things up, what are some key points that you would talk about with, what personalities or expectations should you have in order to live happily if you were a new teacher coming to Korea? What would you say?
Before we came, I actually talked to a lot of people who lived in Korea, and their advice was what I lived by, and I think why we ended up staying for 3 years and having such a successful time while we were there. And it's so simple. It's just to be open. Be open to everything. You're going to Korea. They're not coming to you. So don't expect anything to be the same. Don't
Sure.
expect to understand what's going on. It's all part of the experience. Just be open, take it in, try and learn from it. Don't get upset by it. Don't hold on to it. Be flexible, and I think you'll have a great time. That's my
Yeah,
advice.
yeah, I would definitely echo the open-mindedness. Um, and another thing that really helped me, I think, was a willingness to learn specifically about, the culture that we were in. So the first thing I did when we arrived was find the book that most Korean people that I could find would recommend to learn about their culture from the point of view of someone who knew nothing. So then I was able to, after the first week, I was able to, when faced with something that was new or different or confusing, it wasn't anymore because I could understand what was happening or why it was happening. Um, Not being able to communicate made it more difficult, but at least I had an idea of what was happening. And then also after that, a willingness to learn a new language is really big. I wish that I'd had the chance to learn more, but even just when you get there, spending the one afternoon that it takes to learn the alphabet and practicing, like reading all the signs when you're walking around, you
It
can learn
helps,
them.
right?
Oh, and you can do it so quickly and so easily because so many of the words are just English
Hmm.
written, pronounced a little bit differently or written with a different alphabet. So no one should feel threatened by that alphabet. Like, it looks confusing at first, but it's smaller than the English alphabet. They only make one sound. It literally takes like 2 hours to
And
learn it.
everybody's going to ask you if you go teach in Korea, did you learn the language? And when you can say, yes, I can read it, you feel pretty good.
That's great. So you can obviously get by without learning the language, but clearly a message that you guys are sending is it's important to learn the characters and
A little, yeah.
yeah,
It's
sure,
important to learn
A little,
a
yeah.
little.
sure. Well, guys, it was fantastic. That was Jared and Meredith. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to speak with us today.
Thanks, Matt.
Sure,
Great,
thanks.
great to talk to you.
Thanks, guys.